Hey YouTube, the reason why I'm doing this video is to talk more about some of the situations that have been going on with me, the hindrance, the problems, the everything that's pretty much taking place. I started to realize that my issue was external. It really doesn't have anything to do with me. When applying logic and common sense, this is a psychological thing in which they feel that they can break down the barriers to enslave a person. See, common sense tell us if we have to use the restroom to utilize the restroom and urinate or defecate or whatever in a toilet. Not so common sense will tell you something totally different. When we're dealing with certain things now in society tends to try to take control of your common sense. And the reason why we say nowadays common sense is not so common is because it's rarely ever used. You have so many people trying to take advantage. I started to look at my environment and I started to realize that my desires was not happening, but others. I am surrounded by others' problems. I am surrounded by others' issues. I am surrounded by external problems instead of internal problems. See, internally, I'm doing what I need to do to get to where I need to be. But the problem is certain situations does not allow you to remove external threats immediately. External threats are what sometimes plagues us. Sometimes having other people's items and other people's issues and other people's this and other people's that weigh you down. Other people's burden. You're dating, but the other person has an attitude all the time. The other person's behavior affects you all the time. The other person's issues start to become your issues. And the reason why they becoming your issues because it's external. Your issues, you are in alignment, but they are not. And I started to deal with more myself more than anything else because I started thinking to myself, well, what's wrong with me? And then I started to think to myself, there is nothing wrong with me. There is just the fact that you are human. So as a human, you start to sympathize for people, being just humane. Just being a humane person, you will not allow certain things to go on in your atmosphere or around you because this is common sense and logic. But remind you, we're dealing with a society where common sense is not so common because of the exponent or external threat. There's an exponent that is an external threat. And now this sits up there and is trying to mess with your internal. This is a psychological thing because as a psychologist, I can persuade you by just your normal activities of the day that there is something wrong with you when your normal activity of the day had nothing wrong with it. So if I can plague you with the issue that you have an issue and you don't, but I am doing it externally. And now I'm messing with you mentally because externally you're seeing certain things. You're seeing outside. You're seeing the illumination. You're seeing all of the foolery. You're seeing all the things that supposed to take you out of your common sense zone and put you in an insane or insane position. So you're not sane. They want you insane. I'm sane now, but they want me in an insane position. They want me to appear to be unbalanced, unfocused, unwilling, un this, un that, and everything is because you are those things. You are balanced. You have good habits. You have good ways about yourself. You have good focus. But guess what? The external threat is trying to get an internal position. And if you allow them to get an internal position, they will do it. But guess what they're going to use? They're going to use your sanity to get that internal position. They're going to use the fact that you are not unbalanced to get that internal position. They're going to use the fact that you have good sense, that you have good morals, that you have good ways about yourself, you have good ethics to take you down to the gutter. You have good work ethics. So guess what? They're not attacking you just at home no more. They want to attack you at work. They want to attack you on your ride to work, from work, everywhere else. Because if they can sit up there and they can attack you and get away with it, guess what? They're going to do that. But now it comes the time. What are you doing for yourself? What are you trying to see happen in your life? What is your plan? What is your goals? What are your focus? How does your house look? Is it clean? Because that's another thing that I'm starting to focus on. Is the house clean? Because a lot of times when the house isn't clean, you feel some kind of way. And you can't understand because you're always in an unclean environment and you have to get your environment to a certain level of cleanliness. And it agitates you to be in an unclean environment. But guess what? Your external know this. So everything it does, it sits up there and it wants you to go through financial distress. Guess what? When you can't afford cleaning supplies, it's less likely that you will clean your house, which means that it's more likely that that external threat begins to advance. When you can't afford to pay your bills, this is another distressor. So now the external begins to advance itself. When you can't do certain things for yourself, like just buy deodorant, lotion, perfume, brush your teeth, certain hygienical stuff, this thing begins to advance itself. So the thing about it, you're using common sense, but the whole purpose of your external is for you not to use common sense, to persuade you to not use common sense. Is there any way that they can persuade you, even if it's through, we know that sexual attacks was a tactic of war. So they would sit up there, even in Africa and the Congos and all these different places, would rape women as a tactic of war, would not give women the right to defend themselves. The moment you start to take away a person's right to defend themselves and allow chaos to continue and resume with no resolution, you're dealing with an anarchy situation. Because at this point, it's trying to lure the people that's in authority or have any form of authority so that it can take authority. So obviously it's saying, okay, if you're in a city and that city's out of control, that means whoever's in leadership needs to be aware that they're planning to take him down or her down. But we are at war. Guess what? They aren't in maybe the city hall as of yet. They may not be in your house as of yet. They may not be in your area as of yet, but they have planned to get in those certain situations. They have planned to keep you in a certain situation. If you don't have your own and you have a goal or agenda to say everything my own, and you don't have your own, and you're working at that goal and you're working at that agenda and you have your focus, you're doing everything that you possibly can do, guess what? There's still an external threat that says, okay, well, when she gets her own, if she ever gets it, because I'm going to fight her on that, I'm going to come in and I'm going to destroy whatever she's trying to build. So now you're dating a guy and the guy is a jerk, because that's your external problem with the mission in your home to destroy you. And some of you women and men are going through that now. We have external problems giving us internal issues. Guess what? You're not married to the young man. You're not married to the young woman. So you can still let them go. So that external problem you can easily get rid of. But guess what? They're not so easily moved. So they start tearing your tires up, busting your windows out your car, giving you all kinds of other issues. And you're like, okay, well, what are you doing this for? I don't want to be with you. I see that you're part of my problem. You're not part of my solution. See, this is the problem. We have been forced to surround ourselves with toxic people. And being forced to deal with toxic people a lot of times cause chaos internally. Because these toxic people, when it is time for you to finally leave from around them, they're doing certain things. I don't want to see you with a job. I don't want to see you have. I don't want to see you prosper. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see that. Because you're moving on with your life and they thought that you was their life. And this is a sad situation. So now you're dealing with certain things, dealing with psychological attacks. And I'm going to tell you why it's psychological. If I blind you or I have control of your vision, I can make you see whatever I want you to see. So if I want you to see a blank page, you're going to see a blank page. Even if you wrote on that page, you're still going to see a blank page. But I'm taking advantage of you. I'm belittling you and trying to say, oh, well, you should have been able to see, knowing that I have control over your eyesight by certain devices and compromises that I have placed in you. So now you're feeling some kind of way because you're like, yeah, these are my eyes. And you were taught that your eyes was able to see what you wanted to see and do what you wanted it to do. But you came to find out a different thing, that your vision was compromised, that maybe your eyesight may not have been what you want it to be. And now you have to deal with the consequences of not knowing who put certain devices or what's going on or how they're using certain simulations or certain things against you, talking about they're making a matrix or a matriarch situation for you. And they're doing all of this through chaos. So now you're dealing with COVID. You're dealing with disease COVID. Okay, COVID isn't just a disease. COVID is the fact that you have things externally affecting your internal. And your internal mind is intact. You are intact mentally. You are intact physically. But at the same time, your external threat has an issue with you being persistent, on point, where you need to be, focused, goal oriented, all of this stuff. So guess what they're going to play on? They're going to play on it. What happens when you can't reach your goals? Can you deal with the delay? What happened to a dream deferred? Will it dry up like a raisin? Will it this and that? Listen to me. All of these were tactics for you to embrace abuse. Although it teaches you to be triumphant, it wants you to embrace an external threat, an external abuser. And you are not comfortable with that because internally, your internal say, I have to protect my body, my mind, my soul, and my spirit. By all means, I have to develop intellectually. But an artificial intelligence is going to try to compel you psychologically to say, oh, you don't have to develop mentally, You don't have to do all that. It's a persuader. It's an illusion of being sufficient when you are not. And it wants to persuade you with an artificial understanding of what you will not be. But you will have the security of thinking that you are. Now let's get to the real. Your external threat is an enemy. It is not a friend. It's not a family member. It's not someone that loves you, but it's trying to go everywhere with you. I am going to prosper. It's trying to go with you to prosper. I am going to grow this year. It's trying to grow with you. And this is where that we and that terror, that's external, because guess what? It is a real internal threat. Now we're talking about weeds. Now, I'm dealing with God and the parables of God. Okay, God sits up there and he tells us about the parable of sowing seeds. Now, as he's sowing seeds, they're sowing weeds and stuff where he sows seeds at. Now, this is the messed up part. When they sow the weed, they still go back and dig up the seed, because the seed still has the potential to grow. But those seeds that wasn't plucked up by the bird, that landed in the soil, now it has to compete against the weed for its own nutrition, because a weed is a fig of thirst. People are eating thirst. It will deplenish your nutrients. But they eat this type of stuff knowing that it deplenishes their nutrients. It's not a sustainer. But the seed that you sowed would have sustained their nourishment. But instead, they kept sowing so many weeds that now they have to eat that fig of thirst. You have destroyed everything. So now we're going through desolation. And this is pretty much what's going on with our government system. This is pretty much what's going on with us. This is pretty much what's going on in our household. Okay, we got people, they want to sow thirst. Look, I'm trying to sow prosperity. They want to sow thirst. This is why financially they want to ruin you. If you had money, you're going to buy nourishment. You're going to buy food. You're going to buy the things you need. You're going to buy certain things to try to not really keep you happy, but to keep a certain level of external change. You're able to change your surroundings and your view. So when you're in your own house, guess what? I don't have to see nobody. I don't have to be bothered with nobody. I don't have to have the problems that other people have, because I have changed my external. My house is always clean because I can walk through and clean it. But when you're in someone else's environment, you don't have external control. They actually have that external control at that moment. Because you have to be careful. You got to get permission. Can you change this? Can you change that? Can you do this? Can you do that? You got to get permission about your external in order to change it. And this is something that they want you to be submissive to. Asking permission and asking authority for that which is rightfully yours. So you guys, I'm just urging you guys, start to check your external. Start to look at what's around you and start cleaning your house. Start looking at what's around you and start getting that mess from around you. Isolate yourself. If you ain't even in your own house, start shedding off some doors and like putting up doors to certain areas and shedding off that yourself from that area, and just getting your own space. Getting everybody else stuff out of that space and getting your own space and say, hey, look, I just need own space. Even if I'm in someone else's own, I need my own space for my own sanity and development, because that's vital right now. We are under attack internally by external threat. And that external threat plans to destroy the internal man or woman. Be very wise. Be very careful. May God bless you. Have a good one.